Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach-centered and people-focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests for today. Welcome back, everybody, to a special edition of Inspired Action. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and I'm here with three incredible guests. I'm so fired up about this episode to answer this question. How do you practically walk out your calling when the path ahead is unclear, but the mission still matters? I cannot wait to hear the responses from these three gentlemen. So let me do a quick introduction, starting with Derek McCollum. Derek is the founding pastor at Hope Presbyterian right here in New Braunfels, Texas. He's worked on pastoral staffs at First Presbyterian Church in Baton Rouge, as well as campus minister with the Reformed University Fellowship at the University of Texas. Derek is married to Joy and has three children, Virginia, Hampton, and Anderson. Derek, welcome. Jesse Sanders. Jesse graduated from Liberty University in 2012, went on to play pro basketball for about 6 years in Europe and Australia, and while over there, launched and ran two businesses with his brothers. He transitioned back to the States, and back in 2021, God opened the door to he, his wife, their 6 children, and their siblings to take over ownership and operation of Deer Creek Camp out in Medina, Texas. Jesse, we're excited to have you on as well. And last but not least, Nick Reeves, 20 years as an educator, started in the classroom. Other roles consisted of coaching, campus principal, athletic director, head of school. And in fact, I think he's done all of that at the current school he's at. Primary responsibilities as head of school, and I love this, at New Braunfels Christian Academy, advancing and protecting the vision of the school through cultivating generosity and empowering his leadership team. Nick is married, and I love the way he refers to Holli as his beautiful bride, 3 children, Ethan, Addie, and his youngest, Emmett, who is a senior this year at New Braunfels Christian as well. Guys, welcome. I thank you so much sincerely for being here, and I cannot wait to get started. So we will just start things right off. Derek, we're going to go to you right out of the gate. How do you practically walk out your calling when the path ahead is unclear, but the mission still matters?
Yeah, great question, Kyle. I'd say 3 quick things. The first is remembering that the mission is not our mission, right? So kind of first of all, understanding that we are joining in as a part of God's cosmic mission that started in Genesis 1 and ends in Revelation. That God sets out on a mission to create out of nothing and to create in his own image. And then in Genesis 3, we see him really kind of engaging in a mission to redeem and renew and regain what has been lost. And that is a mission that we get to, joyfully and humbly be a part of. So that's a big kind of first piece of it is understanding it's we're not the ones who start it. We're not the ones we're not the ones who end it. It's a mission that we get to be a part of. And then secondly, I think is just the concept that past performance, really enables us to have present and future trust. And so when things are unclear, when things are messy, when we're really not sure what the next steps are, we get to rely on the fact that that we have seen what God has done. Psalm 124, I think, is a great example of this. The psalm continues, it says over and over, if the Lord had not been on our side, then, and gives all these, examples of what would have happened had God not been on our side, until the very last verse of that psalm. Everything is in past tense until the last verse of that psalm, where the last verse of that psalm says, God is for us, our God. And, that idea of the past, we get to look at the past and see what he's done, that strengthens and enables our trust in the present and in the future. Martin Luther said, I don't know the path in front of me, but well do I know my guide, right? And so the fact that we know our guide enables us to walk the path even when we don't know what the next step is. And then I'd say kind of the third piece of that is that God has given us wisdom to pursue as well. And so he calls us to engage in things wisely, because the truth of it is most of life is not lived in black and white. Most of life is lived, in the gray area. most of our life, we don't really know what the next thing is. And so God calls us to engage those things with wisdom. So I'd say that that's really kind of how we go about navigating life, staying on mission, when we're not sure what's next, is that we just wisely engage in trust and take that next step, to do the next wise and faithful thing, following the Lord whose mission we have been graciously invited into.
Oh man, so much about that I love. And I just want to touch on the second bullet there when you were talking about past performance, because I think in that, even though we believe what you said, it's really easy to get caught up in, well, I remember when, and it didn't work out, instead of what the past performance is really about, when it's always been laid out the way it's going to happen anyway. So I think that's an incredible reminder. Jesse, let's jump over to you and hear what you would add to that. How do you practically walk out your calling when the path ahead is unclear, but the mission still matters?
Yeah, great question, Kyle. I think similar to Derek, I think so much of where our faith is built on, it's this principle that God initiates and we respond. I think that's the message of the gospel, that he loved, he came, he served, he died for us. And then our life now is a response. So if you would ask me 15 years ago, Jess, what is your mission? I would have said, I want to be a light for Christ in a dark world. And at that point, playing basketball, it was a pretty godless environment. Liberty was a pretty good environment. Go to Europe, not a lot of support, but trying to be a light in a place where there wasn't a lot of light. A lot of circumstances and lessons learned in that season. And then you fast forward 10 years later, I'm in a very wholesome environment. I'm around my family, siblings, mom and dad, a great support system. And I get to now mentor and pour into young men and young women. The mission has not changed. The role has shifted slightly, maybe in the way that I'm carrying out that mission. And I think even circumstantially, this is something I think the Lord's really taught me over this last year, is in spite of great challenge, when circumstances change, mission does not. And so what there, early on, my circumstances was I'm playing ball in a foreign country. Here recently, it was a betrayal and a great financial setback. And then it was stage 4 cancer and a lot of uncertainty on that side. And in those moments of fear, it's not that, okay, God, where are you? It's the mission is the same, whether there is blessing, whether there's trial, whether there's, fill in the blank, whatever that is. The mission, if we're to be a light in a dark world, or now I'd say my mission is more to be a disciple who makes disciples, that mission holds true regardless of circumstance. I think that's something that God has been teaching and is still teaching me, that, man, to rely on him and to live out that mission regardless of the circumstances around me.
Yeah, man. And guys, I just will encourage Derek and Nick for you guys to follow up with Jesse when you have an opportunity, because his story is nothing short of a miracle. And certainly appreciate that perspective and know that shining that light in a dark world is making a difference. Jesse, thank you for that. Nick, let's come to you, and you can bring us home. And I'm going to ask you the same question. How do you practically walk out your calling when the path ahead is unclear, but the mission still matters?
Well, first of all, let me just say, I know we're only 6 minutes into this deal, but it's been such a gift to be here and just to listen to you guys share and be encouraged by this wisdom. I just want to double down on some of the things that you've said. Ephesians 2 just reminds us that we're God's handiwork, right? That he's created good works in advance for us to do. And like you guys said, we're supposed to faithfully be a part of those things. And I often remind our faculty and staff of that, hey, he's prepared the good works in advance for us to do. And we're just supposed to walk in obedience, be faithful to those, and just continue to plant seeds in kids' lives that we may see bear fruit before they leave, before they graduate, but we may never get to see bear fruit until 5, 10, 15 years after they graduate. But that's not our responsibility, right? That's the Lord's responsibility to make those grow. And then the other thought that I had was just something that was shared, and just thinking about Psalm 119, and when we're reminded that God's word is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. I was reminded one time that it's not a floodlight unto our highway, right? It's not this bright light unto this ridiculously wide path. It is a lamp unto our feet, a light unto our path. He gives us enough light just for the next step and the next step and the next step. And that's all we need to be concerned with. And so I have just tried to, in every organization that I've been a part of, remind people, hey, God is with us in this. He's called us to these promises that have been true ever since the beginning of creation. And I do think organizationally, that's why mission, vision, and values and the clarity surrounding those are so important, right? That if there's not clarity surrounding those, and we don't call people back to that again and again and again, then it's really easy to drift from that.
Yeah, I love that. And so true, right? That mission, vision, values, if we think about it in the context of our faith, that's the ultimate accountability, right? And I think when we look at it from the human element perspective, those types of things can create that anchor as well for accountability. And are we holding true to the mission that we're on together? And right, are we mercenaries or missionaries? And how do we go about leading those things? I made a list of 10 people that had been the most influential to me in my life over the past 3 years or so. And I was lost. I mean, I was leaving a toxic environment, a great business. So we had all the things, but I knew it wasn't me. I was so out of alignment. And several of them stood out, but one in particular was a pastoral counselor that happened to be an uncle. And so I started meeting with him periodically. And I can remember saying, Uncle Ronnie, how do you know you were called to this? How did you know this was going to be? I said, do you really believe in a calling and people follow a path and then that's what they do? And they're just really locked into it. And he just looked at me across the table and said, yeah. Oh yeah. And I said, how did you know? And so that, I think, is the question that I want to know. I mean, you guys have all of you incredibly entrepreneurial in the things that you're doing, right? I mean, there's a tremendous amount of risk of seeding a church and starting it and hoping people will come. I've taken over a small school in the struggles that it was facing and looking at what you guys are doing now. Jesse, my gosh, you guys all packed up and moved to the middle of absolute nowhere. I think if you look at that in the dictionary, it's defined by Medina, Texas. No offense to the beautiful people out there, but I mean, seriously. And so when you think about a calling, this is something that it convicts you so strongly. And so I'd love to hear from each of you, if you don't mind sharing that a little bit about what is it? What keeps you in the game when it gets crazy? And how do you know it's just there? Nick, let's just go in reverse order.
For me, it has just kind of refer back to some of the things we've discussed a little bit. I think it's been daily faithfulness, and the affirmation of the community surrounding me. I don't know at times that I've always had tremendous clarity on what I was supposed to do next, or whether or not I was supposed to stay in something. But I feel like it's been a combination of the Lord's prompting, along with affirmation from his word, and then the wisdom of other believers surrounding me, and going to those people and saying, like, for example, when we moved here to New Braunfels, we had it was not in the cards at all. It was not something that I wanted to do. I wasn't trying to climb the career ladder. We had been in College Station for 20 plus years. We loved it there. We were happy with our church community. And the Lord said, hey, I need you guys to get ready. And when I tell you to go, I need you to be obedient. And we started kicking that around with our community group and just asking them to pray with us. And then this opportunity presented itself. We walked through that door, and one thing led to another. And here we are 6 years later, and feel like we are absolutely walking right in the middle of God's will. So would I say in hindsight, I feel called to it, but I don't know at the moment that I was like, yes, I'm supposed to be at New Braunfels Christian Academy. And so
Yeah.
that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. And we're glad you're here.
Yeah.
Jesse, I don't know if you have ever had a chance to talk to Nick, but he too has an incredible story of especially that first year or so about some things he went through during COVID and where he is now. So I love it. Derek, I'm eager to hear from you on this same topic.
Yeah. So explain calling in 30 seconds, right?
You can have 3 minutes,
yeah.
maybe 4.
No, I mean, I think one thing that Nick said that's so helpful is, we oftentimes for some reason think about it like, we pray for God to give us clarity, and then he does, and then it's fine, and we know exactly what things are going to be like forever. And that's just not the reality of it. And I don't think that that's the way that it's supposed to be, honestly. I think, we have a calling to the Lord, first of all, to belong to him, and that's really clear and explicit in Scripture. What exactly that path is going to look like is not really clear and explicit. And to me, one of the real beautiful things is the safety involved in understanding that God is sovereignly in control of all things. And so I'm not going to mess up his eternal plans, and that he actually has given me even the freedom to fail, right? That if I am trying to wisely and faithfully put one foot in front of the other, and that ends up being the wrong decision, God is still on his throne. He still loves me. Jesus still died for me, and it's going to be okay. And I think that is the piece in calling that is the most comforting, not the how in the world do we figure out how this map, works at the beginning and know exactly where it ends. I don't think God has promised to give us that, but he has promised to be with us. And so that I would affirm really in a lot of ways, what Nick said, we respond to where we think God is leading. We respond even to external calls, right? It's not just internally, not just, hey, what do I want to do? But, somebody had to give Nick his job. Somebody had to call me to plant this church. The purchase had to work out for Jesse to buy this camp. I mean, there needs to be the way that the Lord works through external things as well.
Yeah. I love that reminder that even in our calling, the freedom to fail exists, right? And we talk about how important failure is in leadership. And I think when you think about something much bigger, many people may step away from that, say, well, what if I mess this up? And it's kind of like, you can't, right? Jesse, how about you? What would you say?
Well, Kyle, it's funny. We get a lot of questions from high school and college students at camp. How do I know God's will? And whether it's picking a university, whether it's dating that girl or dating that guy. And one thing that I think the Lord has taught me is, and probably mostly through parenting, I don't believe there's this one, golden road that if you stray from it, you're forever damaged goods and God's done with you. Me with my children, I desire a relationship with them. And if Elijah wants to go fishing or jump on the trampoline or wrestle on the couch, I'm all in. Let's go, bro. Like, I'm good with whatever the activity is. I want the relationship. And I think often God teaches relationships here and now about our vertical relationship with him. And it's helped me, just like I want relationship with my son, God the Father wants relationship with me. And so I think he gives a lot of freedom and grace, and he's given me giftings and passions and abilities. And as long as I'm purposing to honor him, I believe there's a lot of freedom and a lot of grace in some of these decisions. And Psalms 37:4 is a verse that's been meaningful to me. It says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. And I don't look at that from, the genie in a bottle that, you don't do this, you don't do that, and God's going to bless you. No, I think the more we can submit to his will and the more our purposes align with his, the more we delight in him, the more it's going to shift from my selfish desires to his desires. And when those desires align, man, he is honored and glorified in providing that desire. So if your desire is to disciple, is to make Christ known, then man, God's will is in line with that desire. And so I think that I've seen the cyclical nature of that verse in times where I'm surrendered to him. And I think that's helped provide some clarity on some of these questions of how can I know God's will in this situation? Well, am I knowing God? Am I pressing in? And then are my desires aligning with his desires?
Yeah, I love that. All right. I'm going to have you guys wrap this up with a real short fill in the blank. Okay. So Jesse, I'll just go right to you. I want you to finish this sentence. Leadership that honors God looks like
servant leadership.
Looks like servant leadership. Derek.
I mean, Jesse took the good one. Yeah, it looks like faithfulness over success. Yeah, faithfulness.
Dang,
Nick.
guys.
It
Took my
stinks to be
one
last, doesn't
and
it?
two.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I was gonna say faithfulness as well. I will just say in a matter of transparency, like one of my biggest struggles has been the fear of man, right? Like wanting people to like me. And I think that one of the biggest ways that I've fought that and battled that alongside scripture has just been reminding myself that I am in this to honor the Lord and not for the approval of man. And I am called to be faithful to him. And like Derek said, if I fail, he will love me. And like Jesse said, if I screw up, right, it's going to be okay. And so I think we're just called every day just to simply walk in faithfulness and obedience, and whatever if we're given another day, then we do that the next day.
I love it. Leadership that honors God looks like servant leadership, faithfulness day by day. And I'm going to add humility. And if I had to state it again, I'd say leadership that honors God looks like the three of you gentlemen. And with that, I'm going to close this out. And I can't thank you guys enough. I could sit here probably for the rest of the afternoon and share the impact that each of you have had on me directly, and equally as much indirectly with the things that you do that touch lives, certainly in my family, but beyond that. So with that, I will say thank you to everybody that's listened. Be sure to check us out at our YouTube channel at MindFit Coaching. Episodes of Inspired Action launch every Thursday at noon Central on LinkedIn as well. Guys, thanks again for being here. That's all the time. That's a wrap for another edition of Inspired Action, the Leadership Forecast. We're so grateful for our guests today and the impact they're making with the work they do. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel to watch the longer version of this episode, and be sure to like, comment, connect with, and follow me and each of our guests. You'll find all of our links in the caption of this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in every Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for new episodes.